Okay, we're back. In the previous video, we dealt with some of the things that goes on when it comes to developing your technique. And now we're going to continue to talk about what's on the concept side, how I look at it. One of the first things that goes into developing the concept and the way that you hear is basically your musical environment that you're exposed to. So I'm going to put music and I'm going to put ENV. So that stands for musical environment. All right. So usually the music that you grew up hearing, the music that your parents listened to in the house, or if you came up playing in church, for me, I came up playing in church. And so gospel music, black gospel music was stuff that I heard coming up. So this was stuff that was really embedded in me. And of course, when I got to school, I was able to hear concert music, concert band music. I was also turned on to jazz band, big band stuff in school, as well outside of school. The radio being my neighborhood that I was around, and the stuff that my friends listened to at the time, rap and R&B, being in America, a product of, I guess, America back in the 90s, 80s and 90s. That's what I heard. But all of that has something to do with the way I conceptualize music. So the thing that's interesting, once you start getting an instrument, one of the first things that you're most likely going to try to play is something that you heard on the radio, or something that you heard at church, or something that you heard, that you're working on at school. So that's the whole idea. So this helps to, stimulate the ideas and the way that you hear things. And of course, you have certain music that you like out of that. Sometimes it'll be certain styles of music that you like. For me, coming up, when I started playing the saxophone, the first immediate music that was tangible was smooth jazz, because I could hear that on the radio. I heard people like Kenny G, Dave Koz, Najee, Gerald Albright, Kirk Whalum, all of these guys. I heard these guys, and it was accessible because it was playing on the radio. And so I started to like that. But I was also turned on to other straight ahead jazz, more deep stuff. And at the time when I was younger, I didn't really like straight ahead jazz because it was too much going on. I couldn't hear a melody. I couldn't identify with it because I wasn't used to that. But of course, over time, I gradually started to get it, and then I started learning and liking a lot of that stuff. But from the music that you like, whether it be whatever genre, gospel, country, rock, was what we have: jazz, straight ahead jazz, smooth jazz, R&B, all of that kind of stuff that kind of is in your system is going to shape your concept, the way that you think music should go, all right, the way that you hear. And so from there, you're going to have music that you like, you're going to have artists that you like, okay? So once you have certain artists that you like, think about this. One thing that I remember when I was doing study about a lot of the jazz musicians from back in the day, from the 60s or even before that, from 30s, 40s, 50s on, like when it comes to jazz is a homegrown, like American art form. And so most of the jazz musicians had experiences playing, coming up in the worship services that were going on in the black church. And so a lot of the oral tradition and the worship, the motive, the whole idea of, when it comes to improvisation and when you play, it was all about coming from your heart, and doing something that can connect with God and the people, you know what I'm saying? So that was the motive, that was the concept that they had. So when they got older, when they would improvise as jazz musicians, they would subconsciously be trying to imitate the preachers, because I remember reading about how John Coltrane, that was a lot of his motivation. When he would play, he would try to imitate speaking in tongues. So a lot of these conceptual things that you are exposed to when you're younger, it comes out. And so every artist is different. Whereas like some people might have a stronger rhythmic feel and then other artists might have not as much of a strong grasp on rhythm, but more harmonically interesting. And so let's narrow down some things, like specifically in the areas of jazz for me. Let's say for a person like Sonny Rollins, who I listen to a lot, I was attracted to Sonny Rollins because of his sound. I liked his sound, and I also liked his articulation and his rhythm. A person like Cannonball Adderley, I liked his articulation and his feel, and I liked his ideas. And so he was soulful too. So I can go through a long list of artists that had different things that I liked about them, that other artists I didn't really like those things in them, but it was something else that I liked in them. And that's because everybody's environment and the way that they hear and where they come from is different. And so the cool thing about music is once you start learning things from these different people, the things that they do well that you really focus on to implement into you, it becomes a part of you. And then when you go forward, it's like you're interpreting that you're perceiving from another musician that you're studying. And when it comes out through you, because you're from a different place and everything, it's going to sound different. And that's what makes your concept that much more appealing and real cool, So that's pretty much the concept side. But in order for you to even express yourself well and be able to get to some of these things that you'll hear in particular artists' sound, you got to have your technique together. So that's why I put it all together. And, always say that music and developing, you got to have technique in order to express your concept. Okay? So that's pretty much it.